Hello class, welcome to our lesson today dealing with subtracting rational numbers. This correlates to section 2.3 in your textbook. So as we're going through this lesson, remember that the ideas of keep, change still apply. And with that in mind, I want you to try these 6 questions. Go ahead and pause the video. Make sure you're able to explain these questions, not just plug them in and find the answer. Make sure you know why it's doing what it does. So all 6 of these questions are subtraction questions. So if you do keep the first, then change the subtraction to addition and change the sign of the second number to the opposite. Let's try those out and see what we can do. Okay, now that you've paused the video and checked those 6 questions, here's the 6 answers. If you are having trouble with those 6 questions, make sure you talk to me or to a peer or another student, or talk to someone about these scenarios, because if you don't understand these 6 questions, the rest of the lesson is going to be really challenging for you. So please make sure that you do that in order to be successful. Okay, just a few visual representations about subtracting. Remember, when you subtract rational numbers, it's the same as subtracting integers. So you'll notice here that instead of writing as subtraction, I did keep, change. So really here I'm subtracting and subtracting some more. I didn't draw any of my pieces accurately. I'm just thinking about, do I go backwards or forward? So I went back and back some more. And then that's really an addition question, and I just added that together. -1 and then 1/2 and 1/2 is 2 over 2, which becomes another whole, and it's -2. So I'm going backwards and backwards some more in order to find that answer. You'll notice all 4 of these questions deal with subtraction. Letter B and letter E are subtraction questions because there'll be one positive and one negative when you do keep, change. Whereas C and D, they're both negative, so you should be doing addition. Go through each of these scenarios and make sure you understand where the answers are coming from. Really what you want to focus in on is, should I be adding or subtracting after doing keep, change? And then fractions, find a common denominator. Decimals, either add or subtract the way you need to in order to find those answers. Those are things that you want to think about for these scenarios. The next question deals with something that's important to understand about subtraction, which is that the commutative property doesn't work. For example, here you'll notice I have 3 minus 2, or excuse me, -3 minus 2, and here's 2 minus -3. So all I've done is flipped it. So you'd think, oh, commutative property of addition works. We've already talked commutative property of subtraction is not a thing. But if you make it into an addition question, that will prove that they're not the same. So -3, keep, change minus to a plus, change 2 to -2 versus 2, then change minus to a plus, change -3 to 3. This first answer will be a -5, and the second one will be a +5. And there's a big difference between those. What's important here is that they give you the same absolute value answer. Okay, they're both 5, except one's negative and one's positive. That's the big difference between the two. So here, same thing. 3/4 minus 1 and 1 minus 3/4. They're really the same idea, except one's negative and one's positive. And so that's something that you want to keep track of there. And again, this letter C says the answers are the same absolute value-wise. So both answers should be 1/4, except one is going to be negative because the bigger number was negative, and one's going to be positive because the bigger number is positive. But that's why the commutative property doesn't work the way it should with subtraction as it does with addition. Okay, the next question, I didn't do the whole thing down the list, but I do want to talk about a few things. This is dealing with a checking account or a bank statement. If you have a bank account, I would encourage you to look at some of those things. If you don't, I encourage you to talk to someone that has one, and so you can learn the intricacies of what it takes to have the bank account. You'll notice here that I have a previous balance to start with, and then you'll have numbers that typically will either be in red or they'll be in parentheses. A lot of times groups will do in parentheses because they don't need a color paper or a colored ink, for example. So anything in parentheses like this is going to be a negative, and anything not in parentheses is a positive. Well, you'll notice here, this is typical of most accounts, that there's a lot more negatives that are smaller and a few positives that are bigger. That kind of makes sense if you think about having a job and then collecting a paycheck, and then you spend money periodically between paychecks. And so all I have to do here is figure out, should I add or subtract? And so this is a subtraction, so I subtracted it. This is addition, so I added it, and then I subtracted. And notice I just have a rolling total as I go through. I circled the check number here because some students get confused about the check number. Again, I would encourage you to talk to someone that has a checkbook so that you can learn what these numbers represent. Essentially, they're just telling us which check was used for different things, and you can keep record of that. This has nothing to do like with a money aspect. It's just a way to keep track of things. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, I encourage everyone, of all pieces of mathematics, money is typically one of them that all of us are going to have to look at as we move through our lives. So you want to make sure that you understand how they work. So I would encourage you to talk to someone, whether it be a parent, whether it be a friend. I would talk to someone about the aspects of money and understand kind of how checkbooks work and how a balance would work, so you understand the negatives and positives in terms of the numbers being added and subtracted into your account. Okay, that's everything for today. Numbers 3 through 8, number 31 through 35, that's all in section 2.3. Same rules apply for what we did in integers. So I want you to write the original problem, then keep change to make subtraction into addition. And you really got to be on your game in terms of should I add or subtract here. Make sure you've shown work, because that's the expectation on explaining questions as we move through the rest of the semester. Have a good day, everybody.